This is the
Five Stars
podcast.
Let me talk to you.
Hi.
So, what do you guys want to talk about? Tell me we're not telling lies.
Thanks, guys. Back to you.
All right. So you want my SummerSlam 2025 thoughts? Here you go. I thought the finish to the Reigns Uso versus Breakker Reed match was incredibly lame and stupid. Karrion Kross was a lot cooler and more imposing with a bald head. The Tiffany Stratton-Jade Cargill match from night one was one of the most blatant forms of scripted choreography I've seen in a wrestling match, and I don't even know how long. It was the epitome of a video game match. No psychology, no effort at registering, no facials or passion. Just two lifeless robots going through the motions and doing all the moves. Look, man, you can admire all the gymnastics you want. If that's the kind of crap you're into, then your standards for a wrestling match in 2025 are far beyond the realm of help at this point. The only thing I can't objectively say about that match was that it was a train wreck. For 7 minutes, or however long they gave it, it was an archetypal, pre-planned, pre-rehearsed WWE match. And personally, I hate that stuff. Air that shit as a dark match before a Raw, fine. I'm on board with that. But to give this actual screen time on a Big Four show in front of 50,000 plus people, repulsive. Speaking of repulsive, Jelly Roll. Everything about Jelly Roll. From his music to his physique to his piercings and tattoos. Looking like he's ready for central booking at the local county jail. This is what we coin modern day celebrities. These are the so-called famous people that we're supposed to care about on social media. The kinds of people that Gen Zers are growing up idolizing. God help this country in the next 50 years, bro. I can only hope I'll be dead by that point so I don't have to witness the fall of humanity. The fact that Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, and Randy Orton were roped into that nonsense. Embarrassing. Complete waste of all those guys' talent. The only thing that saved night one for me was CM Punk and Gunther for the World Heavyweight title. That match was everything I love about pro wrestling and more. Real pro wrestling. Not sports entertainment BS. And I'll be honest, as much as it sucked after finally seeing Punk win the big one, he gets that clean win over Gunther to win the title after being savagely destroyed Ricky Morton style through the entire match. Like, I instinctually knew in the back of my head that Seth Rollins was going to cash in Money in the Bank. And it was totally apparent from the moment they did that worked injury angle at the Saturday night's main event when Rollins feigned the knee injury. Anybody that actually bought that injury was legit. You're a mark. Trust me, I watched that clip forward, backward, and sideways multiple times over. It was totally obvious Rollins was faking. Or I'm sorry, working. Yeah, let's garner sympathy on one of the top heels that everybody's supposed to hate. Come on. Like, I know it's 2025, but let's try and use some common sense and logic here. All that said, you know, it didn't make it any less disheartening when they queued up that music. And you see Rollins and Heyman come out. Rollins has that giant knee brace on while he's limping on the crutches, doing the worst sell job for a leg injury I've ever seen. And then you get that classic shot where he turns his back to go up the ramp, only to stop and then drop the crutches like, gotcha, bitch. Turns around, takes off the knee brace, grabs a briefcase and hauls ass down to the ring where there's a conveniently placed female official ready to hit the ring to start the match that she would have had no reason to think was happening in the first place. But looking past that, you know, as predictable as it was, I still thought it was fucking brilliant. And it's obviously part of the bigger storyline they've been building throughout the year where Rollins vowed that he would never let Punk be world champion as long as he had anything to say about it. I guess he just forgot about the part of letting Punk win the world title for all of 2 minutes before fucking him. That is one of the more gaping plot holes if you really want to nitpick the strategy. Like Rollins said, I will never let CM Punk be world champion as long as I'm around. That was almost a direct quote from him. I will never let Punk be world champion as long as I'm under the same roof. Proceeds to then let him defeat Gunther clean for the World Heavyweight title, therefore completely negating his entire mission statement. But on the other hand, I guess you could kind of look at it as him saying, alright, I gave you your 2 minutes of fame. It's the closest you're ever going to come to sniffing that world title again as long as I'm champion, so enjoy the moment. I saw there was a meme that came out that showed the comparison with Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. Because remember, it was last year's WrestleMania when Drew held the world title for 5 minutes and 46 seconds or whatever it was before Punk screwed him out of the world title. How long did Punk hold it here? It was like 5 minutes and 12 seconds. The comments were funny. Because now Drew's going to come out on Raw and go, I prayed this was going to happen. And it did. Now granted, as awesome as all that was, none of it's going to entice me to start watching Seth Rollins segments again. Like, people are only now starting to come around to stuff that I was talking about in like 2018, 2019. The overexposure of Seth Rollins to the point where I'm just sick of seeing him around. Trust me, there's a very large vocal minority of fans out there that are just fed up with Seth Rollins, dude. They're tired of the shtick. They want him to go away and take that garbage-ass theme song with him. Can't say I blame him. Just because it's 7 years after the fact doesn't mean my opinion's changed any. I'm in the same boat, man. Rollins is boring to me in 2025. I don't want to see him on top anymore. I'm done with the whole architect, Monday Night Messiah, visionary, revolutionary, Seth freaking Rollins act. It's old. It's tiresome. But of course, Hunter's in love with the guy, so we're stuck with him until he takes his fat nose out of Seth's anal cavity. Well, you're stuck with him. I'm not, because I'm not watching the television shows. And I'm barely paying attention to the clips or special premium events as it is. But I can't say enough good about that night one closing angle. And the match itself, too. That was top-notch great shit, pal. Even though I do not give a rat's ass about Seth Rollins anymore, and honestly, at this point, if he just went away for the next 5 years, I probably wouldn't miss him. And I think a lot of other people are in that same category. As far as night 2 goes, I thought the gimmick matches were ridiculously excessive. I mean, what do we have? Like 4 gimmick matches out of 7 on the card? 2 of which were literally the same stipulation, just renamed Street Fight as opposed to no disqualification. You couldn't spread those out over both nights. Alright, let's rapid fire through this. Shouldn't take long. The 3-way with Rhea, Io, and Naomi was practically a copy and paste of the 3-way they did at Mania. Just swap out Naomi for Bianca. It's the same talking point I always mention, man. If you've seen any WWE multi-person match in the last 15 to 20 years, that was this match in a nutshell. Nothing special about it. Just another carbon copy case of, we need to make people happy, so let's come up with an excuse to shoehorn as many people on the card as possible. And the fact that these kinds of matches are commonplace today is just sad. Great to see the Hardys and the Dudleys. I can appreciate and value their contributions to tag team wrestling and the wrestling business as a whole. But there wasn't a chance in hell that was going to encourage me to want to sit through that 16 TLC clusterfuck they booked. Now, I've seen enough bodies falling through furniture to last me a lifetime. And at least in some of those other classic TLC matches, it was done with people that were over and actually drew money. As far as the no DQ, no count out, last chance, I still can't believe this feud is still a thing. The Becky Lynch Lyra Valkyrie match, or Valkyrio, I don't know how you pronounce her fucking name, I don't care. I'm just going to leave it at this. I remember the match these two had at, I think it was the Backlash special earlier this year. Thought it was a really good match. I thought Lyra really showed something there. Thought her and Becky worked very well together. I did not see the rematch they had at Money in the Bank. I've not followed anything in terms of where they've taken this storyline in the past several months. What I can tell you is that I watched approximately 3 or 4 minutes of this match, against my better judgment, and the minute they introduced furniture in it, I immediately ceased to give a shit. Didn't take long. And the first few minutes before they introduced gimmicks wasn't anything to write home about anyway. The cage match with Solo and Jacob Fatu, 100% the wrong person won. I have no idea how anybody thought Solo winning that match was the right call. But what do I know? I'm not the booker. I'm just the guy with the better eye for talent. That's pretty much all I have to say about that one. AJ and Dom I thought was fine. It's cool seeing AJ sporting the Eddie Guerrero gear. Him coming out on the lowrider was neat. I mean, they were definitely lending homage to Eddie very much in this match. And let me be clear. I'm not intentionally trying to gloss over the undercard. But when you look at the scope of everything that happened on night 2, let's be honest. It was all about John Cena and Cody Rhodes in the main event. I did not watch the SmackDown clip where Cena apparently turned babyface for reasons that seemed completely random and haphazard. But then again, that's also a pretty good way to describe everything about Cena's heel turn from Jump Street. Random and haphazardly thrown together. So what we basically had here was a babyface versus babyface street fight where both men were still trying to legitimately kill each other with plunder, but they still like and respect one another. Because that makes practical sense. I want to bludgeon you with this steel chair, but I love you. Get the fuck out of here. Now, in actuality, it was another case of them ending up turning the crowd on Cody, because, I mean, everyone was much more pro-Cena in the venue here, which is the same problem they had in Mania. And look, this thing went almost 40 minutes. I'm not going to do a breakdown of everything move for move here. I can respect the hustle of Cena wanting to take all those brutal bumps when he really doesn't have to. Correct me if I'm wrong, isn't he supposed to be filming another movie after this? Or is that Cody that I heard was going away for a while to film something? And whatever the case, they took some pretty gnarly bumps in this thing. I'd have thought they wanted to protect themselves as much as possible if they're going to be doing movie scenes after this. But that's beside the point. This match basically exposed the near-fall spamming to a ridiculous degree. I'm not even kidding you. This was AEW territory level ludicrous. Just completely killing finishers for the sake of killing finishers. And again, you know, if that's the kind of thing you think is pro wrestling, you need to go back and watch tapes from 30 plus years ago when the boys actually tried to protect the business. Because this shit just killed any level of credibility when it ever comes to moves meaning anything. I don't give a fuck that this is the new culture of wrestling fans when it comes to getting anybody to react to something. It doesn't mean it's right and or good. It's bad training. And quite frankly, it sucks. So Cody beat Cena and won the title. Fine. Whatever. That whole John Cena title reign was a complete and utter failure. The heel run, like all that shit was just an absolute waste of 6 months of everybody's lives. Can we just call a spade a spade? Can we all objectively state the obvious? This isn't even me playing the I told you so card. Go back to my fucking Elimination Chamber review if you think I'm lying. To quote CM Punk, tell me when I'm telling lies. I said in that review, it would be wonderful if this heel turn did great business and rejuvenated a lot of people's interest in the WWE product. But the heel turn was done 10 years too late. Nobody bought it from the beginning. The promo sucked. The matches sucked. The psychology never worked. Everything about it was a complete miss. So I'm perfectly okay with them putting the belt back on Cody. It wasn't done in the manner I would have done it, but again, not the booker. So I had no problem with any of that. But let's address the pink elephant in the room. The other big talking point to come out of that main event, and both nights of SummerSlam as a whole, the Brock Lesnar return. The people absolutely blew a gasket when that music queued up. And I don't think I'm wrong here. I think that garnered an even bigger reaction than Seth cashing in Money in the Bank. It was that huge. I mean, all the people that suspected Brock would forever be on the TKO ban list. Well, those rumors were quashed and put to bed. It came out, F5 Cena, and that was it. That was the entire angle. What do I make of it? I don't know. Do I really have much of an interest in a Brock Lesnar-John Cena match in 2025? Why? What's the appeal? Are people supposed to want to pay to see Brock beat the shit out of John and squash him like he did in that SummerSlam match over a decade ago? Or are people supposed to want to see John beat Brock in a one-and-done blow-off at that Paris show next month? And if that's the case, why the hell did Brock agree to come back literally just to job to Cena in his first match back in like 3 years? Didn't they already do that to Brock when he came back to WWE in 2011 or whenever it was? After he'd been gone all those years? He came back and immediately lost clean to Cena in his first pay-per-view match. Look, I'm not saying it's not good to see Brock back. I just don't really get what the end game is here. I mean, we've seen Brock Lesnar and John Cena multiple times over the years. It's not this classic epic rivalry that WWE seems to want to artificially generate. When did this narrative come about that Lesnar and Cena is this all-time great feud? It is? I mean, they worked together a lot. The matches were fine from what I remember, but personally, I don't really consider Brock among Cena's top 5 or maybe even top 10 best career rivals. And I'm not just trying to play devil's advocate for the sake of complaining. I'm just being honest. And while the return was cool and shocking as hell, again, am I really clamoring for one final match between these two? Not unless Brock sticks around to do something after the fact. I'd love to see him work with some of the younger guys they've been trying to elevate in the last year or so. A Jacob Fatu, a Braun Breaker. Now that would be fucking cool. But that's a long game. Depends on how many dates they have Brock around for. But, and there's your synopsis of SummerSlam. I had to just make this the monthly WWE review format on the channel. Come on here, give you a Cliff's Notes rundown of the card, and then we just move on with the more important topics at hand. Oh, by the way, just another sidebar here. Since I'm already on my soapbox, I don't care what y'all think. If you don't like my opinion on this, you can lick my balls. I think Cardi B is an absolute disgrace to the music industry. Her music is trash. That opening segment on night one where they had her come out and speak like she had a mouthful of cum. Dude. That was one of the most awkward, uncomfortable things I've seen on WWE in a very long time. Nobody knew what she was saying. Like, she's trying to hype the fans up, and you just hear crickets during the cadences because everyone's like turning to the person next to them like, the hell did this broad just say? Can't understand a goddamn word she's saying. And no, that doesn't make me a racist, you jackasses. It just makes me a rational, objective person. Her articulation is horrendous. But this is how people are trained to sing now. Yeah, fuck me, right? The semi-pro musician here that sang in choirs and went to school for 4 years. Yeah, I don't know jack shit. Because I'm not a celebrity. I didn't make it big. Yeah, Cardi B knows what she's talking about. Fuck off. Horrendous. You know what else is horrendous? These ridiculous, oversaturated, shameless infomercial plugs. I'm over the sponsorship plugs. It is so far beyond aggrandizing at this point. There was literally a 2-minute segment on night one solely dedicated to sponsorship plugs. Just one frickin' advertisement after another. God. But this is WWE now. This is what you get with a publicly traded enterprise in 2025. You have Michael Cole talking about Minute Maid Juice and Mike's Hard and Wingstop and... This is why I just stick with the classics, man. At least when the WWF had a sponsorship plug on Raw in 1996, it was a passing 10-second mention from Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler on commentary. There's the graphic. There's the plug. Move on with the show. It wasn't this goddamn circus parade with plants dressed in juice boxes sitting at ringside. A bunch of morons. I absolutely died when they showed that clip of Hunter meeting with Trump when he signed the executive order for the reinstatement of the presidential fitness test. Literally, the very next fucking sponsor they plugged. Papa John's Pizza. How is that for grand irony? Make America healthy again. By the way, here's a plug for Papa John's Pizza. The worst greasy kind of pizza you can eat. So rich. I love this country. We are so fucking stupid. But I've spent enough time ranting about this show. It's probably a good stopping point so we can move on to the Raw review. I want to get this uploaded before Tuesday, and I got plenty of editing to do. Can I just say something blunt right from the top of the review? These Raws from the summer of '96 are awful. Just straight ass. I forgot how bad the summer was for the WWF in 1996. It is atrocious television. All the crap I used to give those Raws from 1995. All of a sudden, they don't seem so bad by comparison. To give you an idea of just how terrible things are at the moment, they had a battle royal in the main event to crown a challenger for the WWF title after SummerSlam. Not only was the match fucking atrocious, it's a battle royal, that goes without saying. Most battle royals are giant clusterfucks. I'm also like 90% sure the whole thing was totally pointless because of who won. Spoiler, it was Ahmed Johnson. Allegedly, that earned him a title shot at some point. But the problem is that Ahmed ends up getting hurt within like the next week or two. So unless there's a point in the next 6 to 8 months where Ahmed wrestles for the WWF title and I completely forgot it ever happened, pretty sure that Battle Royal was one big waste of time. And then there was the other advertised main event this week. For Christ knows why. They booked Jerry Lawler versus Aldo Montoya. And of course, the whole thing was mainly a way to push the Lawler-Jake Roberts feud that nobody in their right mind gives a shit about. Where the whole thing is about Lawler exposing Jake's drinking habits and... The whole thing sucks. It was bad when I was a kid. It's even worse now going back and watching it again. You got Lawler out there with a fucking bottle of Jim Beam wrapped in a paper bag, calling Jake Roberts a drunk and an addict. It's just... It's not even reasonably good heat. It's the wrong kind of heat. It's the fuck off, this storyline sucks, get off my TV kind of heat. Which is pretty much what Jerry Lawler had with me at this stage. And I grew up a fan watching Lawler work in Memphis. God, I hated his WWF run. He was just so nauseating. Like every feud he was ever involved with, I never found myself enjoying it. So he and Montoya had their stupid match. The amount of canned heat they pumped into the segment to make it look like people were reacting was ridiculous. You hear all these artificial cheers in the background when Montoya's running wild. Meanwhile, you can clearly see the crowd just sitting there lifeless the entire time. Now, don't get me wrong, Lawler's always a good heel. He's the master of getting the most out of doing very little. There's only so much you can do when you're wrestling Aldo fucking Montoya. The whole thing went like 2 minutes, if that. Lawler sold for a bit and then came back with a couple pile drivers to get the win. Then he dumped half the bottle of Jim Beam liquor down Montoya's throat. JR with the quote of the night on commentary when he goes, "Aldo Montoya's flown down the Whiskey River." If only that were true. Primarily so we never had to see that stupid gimmick anymore. Does anyone actually know when they dropped the Aldo Montoya shtick? It has to be soon, right? When did Just Incredible go to ECW? Was that late 96 or sometime in 97? I don't know my Just Incredible history well enough. So, moving on from that abomination, we go back to the ring for, well, another abomination, as a matter of fact. This time it came in the form of the New Rockers, Al Snow and Marty Jannetty. Good Christ, what a rotten tag team. They wrestled the Body Donnas, which admittedly wasn't much better than the New Rockers. But at least Candido and Pritchard were good workers. By 1996, Jannetty was a shell of what he could once do in the ring about 8 to 10 years prior. And I don't know about you, but anybody that's ever tried to claim Al Snow was a considerably good worker in his heyday, they're smoking crack. The more I watch of him, the more I start to question if I truly underestimated just how terrible he was back in the day. And you'll never guess what this was all designed to promote. That's right. A 4-team elimination match at the pay-per-view with the following names: the New Rockers, the Body Donnas, the Hog Farmers, and the Smoking Guns. Holy fuck, that sounds putrid. If you're wondering, why don't you have any memory of that match ever taking place? Probably because it was my designated piss break when I was 9 or 10 years old. And even here, as I sit in my mid-30s, it would still probably qualify as a good piss break segment. So this match lasted about as long as the Cold War. It literally would not fucking end. From the time they rang the bell to start the match, they were able to fit in a full-length pre-tape promo from Sonny and Farouk, 2 picture-in-picture shots of the Guns and the Hog Farmers watching on a monitor somewhere in the back, a crushed Clarence Mason pre-tape where apparently we're led to believe that Gorilla Monsoon and Clarence have been sitting in the same room talking about this man's criminal background for the better part of 2 weeks. It was the exact same boardroom we saw when they first aired the pre-tape about Crush's return. Meanwhile, the most boring TV match of all time is happening. Did I mention this went through a commercial break? And right at the point I was about to tap out and start fast forwarding to preserve my sanity, then these motherfuckers done really pissed me off. After having sat through a 10.5-minute bore fest, the one time they should not have done a DQ finish, guess what happened? The Smoking Guns run out for the disqualification. I wrote in all caps, "Eat a dick." And I meant every bit of that dick. It's one thing to book a disqualification in a TV match. It's another thing to book a disqualification in a TV match that also sucks and goes on for an eternity. So suffice it to say, I'm not really looking forward to this 4-way at the pay-per-view. Then we had this pre-tape with Shawn Michaels and Kevin Kelly. I always love going back and seeing older clips of Kevin Kelly in the WWF. That man has never changed his personality. Always super dedicated and very passionate about his job. Terribly Caucasian, but a good-hearted man. Can't say the same about Shawn. He can call himself the Heartbreak Kid all he wants, but kind-hearted he was not. I'm not going to spend 15 minutes detailing every talking point they addressed here. It was all the usual tongue-in-cheek dialogue you'd expect. Kevin Kelly asking a bunch of softball, underhanded babyface questions. Shawn trying to drum up the sympathy card and talk about all the adversity he's overcome since winning the WWF title. By the way, take a shot every time Shawn said World Wrestling Federation in this promo. You'd be dead by the end of the segment. It was what it was, man. Listening to Shawn around this period, everything spewing from his mouth was so disingenuous. This whole run was a complete business disaster. Ratings are in the tank. Pay-per-view buys and attendance figures across the board are down. It's the objective reality that so many die-hard Shawn Michaels fans never want to admit. He was a bad top champion. It has nothing to do with his ring work. It has everything to do with him not being a draw and actively pushing people away from the product because nobody wanted to see Shawn as the face of the company. Yes, you had the NWO and all the hot content happening in WCW around this point. And that certainly didn't help. But it's also true that Shawn Michaels was a ratings disaster as a top champion. And I think segments like this only further solidify why so many people turned the channel whenever Shawn was on top. It was so forced and so pretentious. You don't believe anything he says. He's just talking out of his ass. Now, the one thing they did briefly mention here is the possibility of Bret Hart coming back soon. And it's been fairly radio silent when it comes to any mention of Bret on television in the past several months. Ever since the Mania fallout. So you can at least tell they're planting the seeds for something big down the pike. But that led us to the TV main event. And I already covered the stakes here for this 15-person battle royal, or however many bodies were a part of it. They called it the Raw Invitational Battle Royal. Don't really know how the invite process worked, but somehow these 15 guys received a call. In addition to Ahmed, who I already mentioned earlier, you also had guys like Goldust, Stone Cold, Mark Merrow, Sid Vicious, Bulldog, Owen. Trying to see if I bother jotting down anybody else. Well, Taker and Mankind were in there for all of 5 seconds before Taker took them both out. Taker just sprinted down the aisleway like a human missile. He clotheslined Mankind and himself over the top of the floor. And then they fought off to the back. I laughed because I just imagined the idea that they flew Taker and Mankind all the way to Seattle or wherever they were this week, literally just to have them go out there for 30 seconds and then immediately brawl to the back. Why even bother? As I've stated a dozen or so times by now, battle royals are almost completely pointless to even recap because, I mean, nothing ever truly matters until you get down to the last handful of guys. Unless you're a fan of watching guys lay or stand around for 10 to 15 minutes. You're usually not missing anything important in the middle. So I'll just cut to the chase and talk about the closing several minutes. By the way, great shot of the sign from the hard cam side that read, "Gay Dust." Lol. There was a long, boring sequence with Ahmed, Goldust, Sid, and Austin as the final four where to be blunt, not a whole lot of note happened. They kept cutting to shots of Taker and Mankind in a split screen brawling in the back, probably as a means to draw people's attention away from the fact that nothing was happening in the ring. There was a great moment where Ahmed just sort of walked into the middle of Sid and Austin attempting to do a shoot-off spot. You can clearly hear Austin yell, "Move!" It was quite amazing. God, I love ragging on Ahmed Johnson, dude. He was so fucking horrible. Unsurprisingly, Sid was easily the most over out of anybody in the whole match. So naturally, the minute he was eliminated, everybody ceased to give a shit. Came down to Ahmed and Goldust. In addition to Ahmed having a bloody nose and a ruptured kidney, he was also blowed up and winded as fuck, which only made it that much more hilarious when he nearly accidentally eliminated himself trying to shoulder check Goldust. They get to the spot where Ahmed is supposed to check Goldust over the top of the floor, but because Ahmed was such a clumsy meathead, he came at Goldust with so much speed that he basically fell over the top rope when Goldust was about to go over, and he was somehow able to save himself by reaching up and grabbing the middle rope with his hands. Meanwhile, he's literally dangling upside down by his feet over the ring apron. I think Goldust just let go of the ropes at that point to make sure Ahmed didn't fucking eliminate himself like an idiot. So that sequence was quite enjoyable. And, that's like I said. I don't ever recall seeing Ahmed Johnson get a WWF title shot. So it must have either happened in a random throwaway episode of Raw, or they just forgot about it and pretended the whole thing never happened. And they only briefly touched on that whole thing afterward until Farouk ran out and they both started brawling as the show faded out. But, yeah, that was a miserably dull main event. What a payoff. Tune into Raw in the coming weeks. You're going to see Ahmed Johnson wrestle for the WWF Championship. God help us all. That was honestly a good recapitulation of this week's Raw overall. Boring. God, was this show boring. I cannot believe this is how they're ramping up excitement for one of their big fours in a couple weeks. Their main event is Vader versus Shawn Michaels for the WWF title. Meanwhile, Vader didn't even appear on this week's Raw taping. And they've done absolutely nothing since Vader pinned Shawn at In Your House the other month to follow up on that storyline. I mean, the build to this thing is just ice cold. Now, you got Undertaker and Mankind in the Boiler Room fight. And the entire build-up to that is just indiscriminate brawl segments booked on the shows every week. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does kind of fall into AEW territory where it's just endless brawling for the sake of brawling. You know, at some point they touch so much, you're just like, all right, I kind of see it now. Don't really need to see them fight again. I'm just... not feeling the hype machine, man. This show ain't it. And I know how bad SummerSlam 96 is. Trust me. That main event is forever etched in my memory for all the wrong reasons. But it wasn't necessarily prefaced by a remarkably good undercard either. 2 more weeks. The countdown clock has officially begun. Two more weeks until we can just talk about this wretched pay-per-view and then move on to the fall. I honestly can't wait for the Bret Austin stuff. At this point, I'm practically begging for something I can sink my teeth into. Because this shit I'm watching right now is pretty dreadful television. These are rough shows to sit through. But there you have it. Overall, it was a pretty crummy weekend of wrestling coverage, notwithstanding a couple highlights from SummerSlam. But, there you go. Dem's the breaks. On that note, though, we'll go ahead and wrap up the show there. As always, make sure you guys subscribe, comment, and like the show if you have not already. Come back and check us out every week on YouTube and Rumble for new shows and new content. We will have a Friday show this week, and we will get back into the WCW coverage, so we will have 3 segments again. And before you know it, we'll have SummerSlam 1996 on the docket. I'm sure everybody's looking forward to the incoming rant, because I'm really good at doing that. Anyway, take care, folks. Have a good week, and we'll see you on Friday. And for the record, too, there might be a little bit of a delay with the Monday show, because I do have to pre-record the Sunday thoughts, and that'll evidently tie over into Monday. And because I'm working, I won't really be around my computer until late evening, so there will be this episode will go up. It's just, it might be a little later than normal. Don't fret. All the 50 people that consistently come back to watch the show. Anyway, take care, everybody. Peace out.